after the first full moon, after the spring equinox. That is the formula. The spring equinox, as you know, means equal time and day. So at around December, night is longer than day. At around April or May, night is longer, day is longer than night. But in terms of counting, it becomes around equal 12-12, roughly around March 21. So, spring equinox, you count that, and then first full moon. After that first full moon, you have the Easter Sunday. That is why if you were looking at the skies during Holy Week, full moon was April 11. And the fullness of the full moon was around 1 a.m. on April 12. So, there will always be a full moon during Holy Week. Either from Holy Monday to Good Friday, there will be a full moon. And Sunday after that is always Easter Sunday. Okay? Now, what do you call somebody who behaves according to the moon? Lunatic, right? Lunatic. In fact, if you are from Capiz, the full moon is also associated with a swamp. When we were boys in Boy Scouting, we were told by our scoutmaster not to sleep outside the tent at the full moon, because when you sleep outside the tent during full moon, you'll go crazy. Which also explains the English expression moonstruck. Moonstruck is actually a superstitious belief among the British. They believe that if a man sleeps under a moonlight, under a full moon, when that man wakes up, the first woman this man sees, he will be moonstruck, head over heels. He will not relent until he marries that lady. That is moonstruck. That is moonstruck. So, moonstruck, lunatic, actually means you using less and less reason and becoming more and more feelings. You're able to follow with me?
Yes.
Now, that is why Holy Week cannot be understood separate from the moon. Because it seems this Jesus disobeyed his mother and slept under the moonlight that first Holy Week. And when he woke up, he saw all of us, moonstruck with us, fell in love with us, and did so many crazy things for us. As I keep on saying to our people, while we have many Holy Week traditions that we do in order to sanctify the days, Holy Week is not really about the good things that people must do to become holy. Holy Week is not telling people what to do. Holy Week is reminding people what God has done for us. So the focus of Holy Week is not the good that we must do, the prayers that we should pray, and the fasting and the practices that we must exercise. No. The spirit of Holy Week is meditating and reflecting and appreciating what God has done for us. So, this lunatic Jesus slept under the moon and then fell in love with us and did crazy things for us. And the order of the Holy Sepulchre has a very intimate mission with, as I said, the Holy Sepulchre, but necessarily the passion, the death, and resurrection of Christ. Because we were originally guardians of the Holy Sepulchre against desecration, against the attacks of the Moors, and all the others. So, more than the other lay associations in the Catholic Church, the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre should have a very strong spiritual exercise during Holy Week, because that is precisely where the focus is. Unfortunately, as you would understand, I could not leave Liguen Dagupan during Holy Week because the law requires that I be at my cathedral. That is why, as soon as the Easter ceremonies were over, I am here to reflect with you on this importance of the Holy Sepulchre. So, Jesus did crazy things for us. And perhaps the challenge of Holy Week is that we too should be able to do crazy things for us. You know, sometimes we can be so practical, we can be so logical in the way we decide and plan, such that the element of wonder and awe can be compromised. When we were in grade school many years ago, people measured students in terms of IQ, intelligence quotient. And people thought that people with high intelligence quotient have greater likelihood of being successful in life. And then the HR came forward, psychologists came forward, and started to talk about EQ. EQ meaning emotional quotient. That it is not just the intelligence, it is also the capacity to relate. It is the capacity to build a team. It is the capacity to make friends. But in recent years, people have seen that there can be people with high IQ and people with high EQ, and yet they cannot seem to fit in society. And now people are talking about a third Q. And the third Q that people look for is WQ. WQ is wonder quotient. Wonder quotient is the capacity to dream, the capacity to envision, the capacity to be caught in awe, the capacity to live in mystery and not burst that mystery. The capacity, no matter how old you are, to be able to say, wow. When that wow quotient is lost, then leadership is also compromised, and even intelligence becomes less important. Because what the world needs now are visionary leaders. In his ministry as Archbishop of Manila, Cardinal Rosales loved to repeat that leadership without vision is treason. Leadership without vision is treachery to those entrusted to our leadership. When that sense of awe, when that sense of wonder is lost, no intelligence, no emotional quotient can save it, because people just fall into depression. People just give up. People just say there's nothing more anymore, and hope is dead, and when hope dies, what happens? That is the basic difference between Peter and Judas. Both of them made mistakes, but Peter clung to hope, while Judas gave in to despair. So when there is hope, there is vision. Where there is vision, there will always be meaning, no matter how heavy life's crosses may be. So, let us continue to reflect on the Holy Sepulchre and the events that led to it. The first person that I wish to present to you for meditation is Peter. Peter. To him was entrusted the keys of the kingdom of heaven. But who was Peter? Peter was not like any one of you here. Peter was a fisherman. He certainly had rough hands. Peter was a fisherman. He most likely had broad shoulders from pulling nets out of the sea. Peter was a fisherman, probably almost literate. He had not read the prophecy of Isaiah about the suffering servant. I am sure Peter was not familiar with the Jewish Bible. Who was Peter? Peter was an illiterate, impulsive fisherman. Illiterate and impulsive. And impulsive in Tagalog means mapusok, hindi nag-iisip bago magsalita. And then, you will just regret later on what you have said. Peter was like that. Hindi nag-iisip. He is not just mapusok. He was, if you're mapusok with intelligence, that is a blessing. But if you have mapusok but there's nothing here, that is very dangerous. And Peter was like that. That is why when the Lord predicted the Passion, the Lord also told Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." And it did not end there. So the Lord predicted that Peter will deny the Lord. The Lord predicted, and the Lord was correct, because Peter indeed denied the Lord before the morning. By the way, there is always the image of Jesus with a rooster, because the Bible says, "You will deny me 3 times before the cock crows." Actually, now it can be told, it is a little bit of misinterpretation. Because it was not the cock, the rooster, that they heard. Because around the city of Jerusalem, there was always a call for prayer. And that call for prayer was done by sounding the trumpet. And the sound of the trumpet coincided with the morning when the rooster crows. So it was, because if there was a rooster in the city of Jerusalem, that city would have been rendered unclean according to Jewish customs. You follow? There could not have been a rooster there inside. Because if there was a rooster inside the city of Jerusalem, with the rooster being a dirty animal and an unclean animal, then the whole city would have been rendered unclean. So it was not a rooster that they heard. It was rather the sound of the call for prayer, the horn that is blown, which is a call for prayer before 3 o'clock in the morning. So, huwag nyo naman ako isumbong sa mga sculptors, okay? It's okay to have the rooster there. But if you want to be precise, there could not have been a rooster when the Lord was denied by Peter, because a rooster would make Jerusalem unclean inside the city. So it was the sound of the trumpet that was the call for prayer at 3 o'clock in the morning that was heard before the denial of Peter. So you can paraphrase Jesus by saying, before the call for prayer at 3 o'clock in the morning is heard, you would have denied me 3 times. That would be the more precise interpretation. There was no rooster, because there can be no manure, and if there is a manure, the whole city would have been rendered unclean. Okay? So when you go to the Holy Land, you can be sure there will be no cocks near the Wailing Wall, because the Jewish tradition would prohibit it. So let's return to Peter. Peter was almost illiterate and very impulsive, certainly more emotional than logical. And not only was he that, he was also a coward. Because later on, after the Lord's ascension into heaven, Peter would be caught eating with the Gentiles. And when the apostles came and saw him eating, Peter immediately stood up and pretended not to be mixing with the Gentiles. You know that. You're in the company of, let's say, corrupt, dirty people, outcast in society, higit ng lipunan, but they're all looking nice and powerful. And when Peter was mixing with them, eating with them, he pretended not to know them when the other apostles saw him. And then the last straw was, according to church tradition, Peter reached Rome, and there was a persecution of Christians in Rome. And when they were burning Rome, and Peter knew that he would be next in line to be arrested, because the other Christians, the first Christian martyrs of Rome, had been burned, Peter was running along the Appian Way, the Via Appia, which still exists in Rome until now. And according to tradition, the Lord was there by the Appian Way, and then Peter saw the Lord. That is why you have the famous expression now, Quo vadis, Domine? Where are you going, Lord? Lord, where are you going? And the Lord answered Peter, to Rome, to be crucified again, because you are running away. To Rome, to be crucified again, because you are running away. It was a humiliating moment for Peter. He turned around, returned to Rome, and faces death. And when death was really on him, he asked that he be crucified upside down, because he did not consider himself worthy to die in crucifixion like the Lord. So, Peter has become, in a manner of speaking, immortal. But how did Peter reach the kind of immortality in the church? And the answer is only one. Awa ng Diyos. Peter did not do anything to merit such immortality. If Peter is venerated as the first hope, as the cornerstone, as the rock of the church, on which Jesus founded his church, it is only because God had mercy on him. So, that is my first message for you this morning. God has mercy on us. And the whole story of Jesus is really a story of mercy for all of us. But how is mercy to be shown? You know, related to the story of mercy, one of my favorite stories of mercy is the parable of the prodigal son. The lines are familiar. When he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him, ran to meet him, put his arms around him. The father ran to meet the son. I don't mean to be irreverent, but I think we should, in giving the title to the parable of the prodigal son, we are missing the element of what the father actually did. If I may be permitted, I'd like to propose that the parable be called the parable of the running father. It is really the parable of the running father, because that is the most extraordinary thing that happened in the parable. Any son can claim inheritance from his parents. Any son can work with pigs in a Gentile territory. Any son can begrudge the father for being too kind on the other son. But not all fathers run. The father running to meet the son is super extraordinary. Why? You must remember that Jewish men don't wear pants. They did not wear pants, they wore tunics. So when the Jewish father runs, necessarily, as the ladies wearing gowns, he would have to lift his tunic. And you know what is so dishonorable? For an elderly, dignified person to show his legs. For the woman, it is bad manners to let down your hair. You remember the sinful woman who washed the feet of our Lord and dried the feet with her hair? That is a no-no. Because when a woman is in front of a man, the hair should always be up. When you put down your hair in front of a man, you're actually soliciting sexual favors. Now, in the case of a dignified man, when you show your legs, that is below your dignity. Because the Father does not run. The Father makes people run. The Father gives orders. You run. You go there. But not run. And what the Father did was to run. It is as if He has been waiting for the return of the Son, embraced Him, and told the servants, without telling the servants, my son deserves to die by stoning because he has dishonored me. You can kill my son, but only after you have killed me. So, the story of God's mercy is that the Father running to meet us. The Father is not just there waiting on His royal throne. The Father is there waiting, and as soon as He sees us approaching, He comes forth running to welcome us. The second figure that is worth reflecting on during Holy Week in the light of the Holy Sepulchre is Judas. Meron ba kayong Pilipinong kilala ng pangalan Judas? You know, it's going to be a curse on the baby, no? if you bring a baby and then she say to the priest, Father, this is my son. Can you please name him Judas? Have you ever seen a baby named Herod? Or heard of somebody who is named Pontius Pilate? You know, if you're a Catholic, it would be ridiculous to call your child Pontius Pilate or Herod or even worse, Judas. Because Judas and Herod and Pontius Pilate belong to the same bag. Judas is a traitor. Herod is a proud, arrogant leader. And Pontius Pilate is a leader without a backbone. So here is Judas. You know, in some parts of the Philippines, Judas is part of the Easter tradition. But it is quite absurd. Because you put up a paper mache of Judas. And when the risen Christ has met the Blessed Mother, we usually have fireworks. But the fireworks, this is incredible, huh? Because I am sure priests taught this. The fireworks are inside the paper mache of Judas. And at the meeting of the Mother and the risen Christ, the paper mache is lit, and naturally it bursts, and people clap. Sabi ko, oh my goodness, Holy Week, Easter, you are rejoicing that the effigy of Judas is treated like that. Well, I am not here as an abogado of Judas, but I just invite you to give Judas a second look. First, he was a treasurer. If you're CEO or chairman of the board of a corporation, would you choose a treasurer whom you know will be a thief, whom you know will be a liar, whom you know would be unfaithful, whom you know would cheat? Now, if you are CEO or chairman of the board and you elect somebody as treasurer whom you know will cheat and steal, I will question your concern for the corporation. Now, Jesus chose Judas to be the treasurer. There was Matthew, who was a tax collector, who was more familiar with financial management. But why was Judas chosen? Because Judas stood out in terms of trustworthiness. He was trusted by the Lord. And don't tell me that the Lord made a mistake, because the Lord is God and man. And in a situation like that, you can trust that the Lord will use His divine powers in order to discern who is the most trustworthy among the 12 that I have chosen. So he was trusting. He was trusted. Second, Judas was also trusting. Why do I say that? Judas saw that the lame could walk when the Lord touched the lame. Judas saw the son of the widow of Nain rise from the dead. Judas saw Lazarus rise from the dead. Judas saw the blind seeing. Judas saw the mute speaking. Judas saw the lepers cleansed. 10 of them, all instantly. Judas saw all of that. That is why Judas believed that there was something very special with my boss. My boss is not an ordinary man. He must be Superman. Maybe turning briskly like Superman, you're going to see wonders. When the Lord said, I will be crucified, you will see the Son of Man on the cross. Peter said, God forbid it. But Judas did not speak. Why? Because Judas knew, I don't have to say it. I am sure he will do it. So what did he do? When things were becoming hotter and hotter, because they had already reached Jerusalem, and the Lord's fate seemed like it would be crucifixion, Judas went to the priests and said, you arrest him. But at the back of his mind, he was saying, try to arrest him, push him against the wall, because I am very sure he's going to do something wonderful. I am sure he's not going to allow himself to be arrested. Because if he made the deaf alive, if he made the lepers clean, if he made the dumb speak, if he made the blind see, I am very sure he is going to exercise the same power, and when you try to arrest him, you will see his glory like the glory that Peter, James, and John saw at Mount Tabor. He was sure about that. That is why when the Lord saw Judas and Judas kissed him, what did Judas do? Judas did not run away. Judas stepped aside, waiting with a smile, the wonder that the boss would do. Now we say Judas is a thief. If Judas was a thief, why did he return the 50 pieces? That is not the behavior of thieves. What I have stolen, I will not return. Pero sinungaling eh. He returned. He wanted to return because he was saying it was a wrong deal. It was a wrong deal, and he was an honest man. And being an honest man, he says, I don't deserve these 30 pieces because my master has died. And I don't like to have anything to do with that. If Judas intentionally wanted the Lord to be killed, he would not have killed himself. He would have been happy seeing the Lord killed. That's the normal human behavior. So, now what I'm saying is this. If you are kind to animals, why don't you be kind to Judas? We can be kind to a dog. I think we can be kinder to a human person like Judas and not pass judgment on him and just say, Judas, we have something in common. We have something in common with Judas. And what is it? You and I are trusted by God, isn't it? And you and I also trust the Lord. Judas was in a hurry. Judas could not wait. That is why he pushed the Lord against the wall so that the Lord's glory, so that the Lord would be forced to show His glory. Isn't that how we are? Do we not pray this way? Lord, my husband has cancer. Please cure him now. Do we not pray that way? Or do we not pray, I go to Mass, I fulfill all the 10 Commandments? Why does my daughter or my granddaughter come home to me, 15 years old and pregnant? Lord, don't you answer prayers? Can't you show your glory? Can't you show that you are a mighty God and prevent such humiliation from happening to a family that is faithful to you? there is a bit of Judas in us. Because we are people in a hurry, and we are people who want to see the glory of God without passing through the goring of Easter, of Good Friday. So, there is something in us that is in a hurry, that cannot wait, that just looks at the glory of the Lord. If we can only be humble enough to understand that there is something in us that just wants Easter Sunday without the pace of Good Friday. There is something in us that just wants the glory without the sacrifice. Then we can perhaps be more understanding with the character of Judas. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Judas is a saint. Neither am I saying I am a saint. Neither am I saying you are saints. What I am saying is there is a tendency in all of us to be in a hurry, to make God obey us, to make God obey what we like, rather than us obeying what God feels for us. The third character for the Holy Sepulchre, and should really be the patroness of the Equestrian order of the Holy Sepulchre, who was first to see the empty tomb and who was first to encounter the risen Christ, is, as you know, Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene met the risen Christ for the first time. She is the first human being to meet the risen Christ. Peter held the keys of the kingdom of heaven. John was the beloved disciple. But Mary Magdalene was given the distinction of seeing and meeting the risen Christ for the first time. I hope none among you here ever say that Mary Magdalene was a rehabilitated prostitute. I will declare war against you. Don't ever say that. Because Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute. Mary Magdalene was not babaeng mababang lipat. The adulterous woman the woman caught in adultery in the Gospel of John is not Mary Magdalene. The adulterous woman who wiped the feet of our Lord was not Mary Magdalene. The woman with 7 husbands taking water from the well was not Mary Magdalene. That is not Mary Magdalene. They were all called Mary, but not Magdalene. There is only one Mary of Magdala. And what is the story of Mary of Magdala? Mary of Magdala was a woman who was healed by the Lord because she had done 7 devils. Babaeng may 7 demonyo. Demonyo is not asawa. Although sometimes we think that way. Okay? Ang demonyo hindi asawa yun. Ha? So, a demon, a devil, is not a spouse. Is not a husband. So when the Bible says, Mary of Magdala had 7 devils, it was a biblical expression for 7 sicknesses. 7 sicknesses could mean hemorrhaging, I have cancer, I have a heart condition, I have ulcer, I have diabetes, I have eczema, I have arthritis, and all the others. So Mary Magdalene was sick with 7 ailments. And the Lord cured Mary Magdalene of the 7 ailments. Now put yourself in their position. You're saved from hospital bills. You're saved from Flanax. You're saved from chemotherapy. You're saved from all herbal medicines. You're saved from 7 sicknesses. Are you not going to be grateful? So the second quality of Mary Magdalene was that she followed the Lord everywhere since the time she was cured. And what did she do? She did what the women in the life of a man would do. She washed the clothes, she prepared the food, she prepared water to drink, and she just made life comfortable for the itinerant teacher, Jesus. So from being a healed woman, Mary Magdalene becomes a helper woman. And who was at the foot of the cross when all the other men had run away? Mary Magdalene. And who was the first to visit the tomb after the Sabbath? Mary Magdalene. So, Mary Magdalene, if there is any virtue that she exemplifies best, it is only gratitude. Utang na loob. She knew utang na loob. And she knew that utang na loob can never be fully repaid. Utang na loob. Thank you. Gratitude. You know, when we were in grade 3, our teacher taught us to memorize the poem on page 46 of our English textbook for a graded recitation the following day. My name is Villegas, as you know, and I am number 38 in the class of 40. Every time there is a graded recitation, I never get called. So, being practical, I said, I am sure I will not get called, so I will watch TV. The following day, the English teacher said, did you memorize the poem on page 46? And the teacher said, my classmate said, yes, ma'am. I didn't answer, I didn't tell a lie. And the teacher said, every time you have a graded recitation, we start from Alquillera. Today we will start from the back. So, but I was still sure my 2 other seatmates have not studied. Zaragoza, Yao, Villegas. Zaragoza, first stanza, he recited. Yao, second stanza, he recited. My heart was pounding because I have never experienced standing up in class and not knowing what to say. So I stood up, Villegas next. My classmates were very kind to me. They were whispering to me the first word of the 3rd stanza. But I didn't know the 2nd word because I didn't open the book. So the teacher said, did you memorize or not? And I said, no, I'm sorry. So she went to the back and pinched me somewhere here. Very fine. And I said, just go! And I also prayed, just go, i-continue ako. You know, God answered my prayers. God made me a bishop, and until now, my teacher is still unmarried. No one dared to court her for pinching me. But until now, I cannot forget that poem. And the poem says, hearts like doors will open with ease, with very, very little keys. But don't forget the 2 of these are, thank you, sir, and if you please. Hearts like doors will open with ease, with very, very little keys. But don't forget the two of these are, thank you, sir, and if you please. Can I ask Ambassador Crisia, shall we have Mass? Readily, he said, yes. Because what marks us as Catholics is the Mass. And what is another word for the Mass? Eucharist. And what is Eucharist in Greek? Eucharistia. And what is a Eucharistia in Greek? Thanksgiving. So if there is any mark that should distinguish us from other religions, it is thanksgiving. It is that we should be a grateful religion, a grateful church all the time. And as a church of thanksgiving, as a religion that is always giving thanks because this is our identity, then we look at the world. And what is becoming of the world? The world is not becoming a grateful world. The world is not becoming a grateful society. The world is becoming an angry society. An angry society is what is becoming of us. Brexit is an angry society. Trump is an angry society. Duterte is an angry society. And children angry at their parents. And there is so much anger, there is so much resentment, there is so much violence and terror. Christians angry at Muslims, Muslims, ISIS angry at infidels. Angry society. We cannot count blessings anymore. We just look at defects. We just look at imperfections, and there are so many. So, there is something that Christianity can offer to the world. And what is it? To be grateful again. To be happy and to be grateful again. I am not saying that we should lay blind to the problems of the world. I am not saying that we should be like the ostrich, burying our heads in the sand when the whole world is on fire. No, not that time. But to be able to say thank you, to be able to express gratitude, and to be able to look at everything as a blessing. And in the context of the Holy Sepulchre, my dear brothers and sisters, what I say to you is this. When you are a grateful person like Mary Magdalene, even the door of the empty tomb will be rolled away because you know how to give thanks. Because she was a grateful woman, even the door of the tomb was rolled back, and she saw the empty sepulchre. How do we apply that to our lives? The lesson is clear. If you want to be a happy society again, be a grateful society. Because a grateful society opens tombs and makes dead people rise up. An angry society makes dead men rise up. A grateful society makes dead men rise up. And a grateful society makes people realize that there is something we Christians can offer, and that is joy. That is joy. The order of the Holy Sepulchre cannot just be guardians. We must be guardians of what? Guardians of nothingness. What do you have in the tomb? Nothing. Nothing, right? There are no ashes there. There are no bones there. There is no one there. There is nothing. Now, when I say the knights and dames of the Holy Sepulchre should be guardians of the Holy Sepulchre, and I say there is nothing there, I speak of nothingness. When you speak of nothingness, people become afraid. Are you ready to have nothing in your pocket? Are you ready to have nothing on your plate? Are you ready to have nothing in the kitchen? People are afraid to have nothing, because to have nothing is to be poor. On the other hand, people are working for abundance. People are working for wealth. People are working for productivity. People are working for higher income, higher revenue. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. But in this desire to accumulate, in this desire to get richer, in this desire to have more, people are becoming more and more unhappy, sad, lonely. This is what Mother Teresa calls the poverty of affluence. People are affluent, people have riches, and yet they are lonely. So knights and dames of the Holy Sepulchre, look for people enduring nothingness. They are rich, but they have no meaning. They are rich, but they are lonely. They are rich, but they cannot see purpose in life. So, look out for them. And in looking out for them, be able to understand that you cannot be guarding the Holy Sepulchre 24/7 anymore. But please look for those who are living in nothingness, who cannot experience the joy of the resurrection. Make them grateful, make them happy, restore them to the mercy of God. Let us stop for a moment. Let us stop for a moment and let us look at the crucifix. And let us fix our gaze on the Lord. And then let us reflect on the three characters. Maybe fourth if you want. The first is the moon. The second is Peter. The third is Judas. And the fourth is Mary Magdalene. But when you put all of these together, ask the Lord for the grace to be grateful, and in order to cure the anger that is so prevalent in the world today. Let us enter into silence briefly.